So thank you guys for being on this call today. Ellen and I, a few weeks ago, decided it was like putting together a dream dinner party. So you guys are all on our dream dinner party list. And I really appreciate you being here and taking the time as we continue to have Zoom fatigue. So thank you for being here. And most of us on this call today are in the business of luxury travel. And over the last few weeks, I've been on a lot of webinars and I'm starting to hear the same things in the travel business over and over again. And that, of course, is going to change as things open up even more in the weeks ahead. But I think it's so important to talk to voices outside of travel, to learn, to understand, to stay curious always and not be bored or listening to the same thing. So, and of course, the brands on this call today and us, we're all in this together, right? It's not just travel that's been hit, but we're all experiencing it in different or maybe similar ways sometimes. So if you look at travel as kind of the big umbrella, so many amazing passion points fall under that, right? So we travel for food and wine and architecture and art and jewelry, and we might read something in a book and then want to go there, or see a TV show and then go there. So all of these industries are interconnected, and of course fashion. And so people who love exploring these passions tend to be the best kinds of travelers, right? The ones that want those deeper, richer, more fulfilling travel experiences, which just so happens to be Afar's mission, by the way, to help support those kinds of travel experiences. So there are also the travelers that come back first. And this week, I don't know about you guys, but for the first time in a long time, at least in travel, I'm getting a lot more emails with hopeful information, hotels that see bookings skyrocketing, advisors who are getting inquiries and bookings, which has made me feel really great that things are slowly, ever so slowly coming back. And if you're seeing that as well, I'd love to know. I just want to hear that from everyone. So feel free to email me at annie@afar.com if you're seeing any trends you're seeing as well. So we have experts today in retail, fashion, and books. And, when it comes to retail, so much of consumer behavior, of course, relies on mood. I was talking about this with a couple of our panelists yesterday. I think as things continue to open up, we'll of course see spending go up. And as you guys might have heard, I was in Switzerland last week where everything was open and I just wanted to spend money. I just felt alive again, even though there is this insane economic uncertainty and incredible job loss. But we also know that our industries support jobs and local economies in such a huge way. So with that, I'll introduce our amazing panel today. Just kind of give a wave if I say your name. So we have Jack Calhoun in the San Francisco area. He's the former CEO of Banana Republic, which was my first job. A senior advisor at McKinsey & Company in global apparel, fashion, and luxury, and a former board member at Kimpton. So he also understands the hotel industry very well and an avid traveler. We have Bob Chavez, the president and CEO of Hermes Paris. You're in New York City, and he's been there for almost 20 years. Is that right, Bob? Or
I've been at Hermes for 20 years. I've been in New York for longer than you'll want to know.
Later. And then we have Esther Kremer, the editor-in-chief of Azuline, which publishes some of the most beautiful books in the world. They're really art themselves. They're more than books. So we're so thrilled to have all of you guys here today. And then we have Joe Diaz, our co-founder of Afar, who started this crazy ride 11, 12, I don't know, years ago. And then we have Ellen Asmodeo, our executive vice president and chief revenue officer. So today we're going to talk a lot about how we're talking to our customers today and what we're hearing from them, and we'll get into all of that, but I'll start with Joe to kind of give us an overview of what's happening at Afar and what you've been seeing.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. It's good to be with everyone today. And hard to believe that Afar launched 11 years ago, and I was thinking about this panel, and I was thinking about three key pillars when we launched that we haven't wavered from, and I think has helped us significantly, especially in this time. One was do work we're really proud of. And so in other words, of the highest quality and that really aligns with our values. Two, do work that's different, really take a unique point of view. And three, create a really dynamic relationship with like-minded audience who cares deeply about the same things that we care about. And like I said, honestly, I think this approach has given us the ability to navigate these waters better than some of our competitors, frankly. And we hear that a lot from our partners telling us that. And I think you heard, there's a couple of Afar lives ago where we were talking about, all being in in the same boat, or actually really in the same storm with different boats. And I was thinking to myself, like, who do we really want in our boat? And it's that affluent global citizen. And that's one that we've been attracting from the very beginning. And reflecting back, I can say why we would want this particular group. I think one, right now, there's just a smaller pie. There's not as much to go around, and we need to really concentrate our resources and really focus on taking share, because our resources are more limited than they've ever been, and the demand on those resources to make an impact is higher. Two, I think, this audience, and we know this from research, they travel the most, they spend the most, and they influence others the most. And we know that the reams of third-party research, the things that we see internally, and also just through our excellent network and communication with the world's top travel advisors, we're hearing this. Three, they vote with their passions. These discerning global citizen travelers really do vote with their passions and values, meaning that they're not as price sensitive as other travelers. And I think that's really important. And we've been doing a lot of surveying of our audience during the COVID epidemic, just really trying to understand their mindset and what they're thinking. And we're consistently seeing that only 1/3, I guess the takeaway stat that I saw was only 1/3 of our audience agree that they're planning to take advantage of lower prices as a result of a crisis. So it really, to me, that means that it's all about getting it right, not getting it cheap. And people are going to become, especially in this tier, become more discerning about how they're spending their dollars. This audience also is the first to return. Just anecdotally, our stay list, which is our roundup of exciting new hotels, was one of our top performing content pieces in April, despite the current climate. So we're seeing a demand for not only travel inspiration, but actually deeper planning. And this audience is actually more adventurous and less fearful. So they're willing to travel farther and for more time. And, we've seen our traffic from March to April double on content around longer haul, higher end trips. So that's exciting. And finally, I think this audience is highly engaged. They're not only are we seeing that from our site traffic being way up, which I think is an effect of a lot of people being home, and a lot of our fellow publishers and competitors are seeing the same things. But our affiliate revenue in May is also pacing to double April's numbers, and the rate of individual responses that we're getting to our content in the form of personalized emails, questions, encouragement via email and social is way, way up. So rounding this out, I really believe there's a real opportunity to lean into this audience of globally minded, discerning travelers, and you have to know really how to communicate with them. We've been experts in that, and I'm really excited to hear from our panelists today, because one, I think we share a core audience of like-minded, affluent global citizens, and two, you're experts in communicating and engaging this audience as well. And three, you come from a different industry, you come from different industries. And so we'll have much to learn from your experience and perspective. And I'm really excited to listen and learn from all of us today.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. And I think, the thing that stuck out to me the most, which we've talked about a lot, is, of course, luxury travelers come back first. So I wanted to, first I'll start with Bob. So what is the pulse of your customer right now? Could you give us kind of an overview? How many stores are open? What are some indicators that you're seeing that, consumer habits are shifting or changing, or, what are you seeing right now?
Sure. Well, here in the US, we have about 30 stores in total. And right now we're at about half of them are open. Now, when I say open, they're open only for either curbside pickup or by appointment only, not really open to the public as yet. And what we've seen is that the clients are eager to come back. They're eager to shop. Our website has remained open. Excuse me. We closed for a couple of weeks, but it was the first to reopen. But what was interesting is that we saw continued demand and strength on web sales throughout the closure. So the customer is there. They're ready. They're waiting. And to Joe's point about they're the first ones to come back, in a way, we feel like they never really left. They just were a little dormant, or they kind of went, inside the way all the rest of us did.
I love that. And I have to say, I kind of did a deep dive on the Hermes website last night, and it's so easy to use. It's a very user-friendly website.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's very easy to just put it into the shopping cart. Thank you for that. And Jack, you of course work with a lot of different clients around the world. What are you seeing right now? You've done a lot of surveys. What's the pulse right now for global retail?
Yeah, I think it very much varies greatly around the world. I work from Europe. I do a lot of work in China, Australia, US, and it's kind of like travel. It's very local, and I think because of this pandemic and how different countries, and then even within the country, regions are responding and opening up or not opening up, is really affecting what people are doing, how they are moving about, and how they are spending. One of the surveys I was looking at this morning that we had is just kind of the optimism about the economy, and looking at the US versus China. So China's been open longer, and we've seen optimism, which meaning people believe that things will start to get back to normal after things open up in 2 to 3 months. The economy will kind of bounce back. Pessimistic means it's going to take over a year or two. Optimism is going down in the US, and it's growing considerably in China since they've opened up. So it's just interesting to see those two, and it even kind of shows in the spending patterns of those two things. So, I kind of feel like travel's always been local. You go to experience a local culture, a local something, and I think this is going to even push that more. I think we're going to see very varied results around the world based on what's open, what's happening, how the government's responding on a national and then even a local basis.
And do you see, Jack, with that, do you see that as in China, that it's just a factor that things, like I was saying in Switzerland, it just felt better that things are open? And so maybe that's one of the big reasons why there's optimism, or do you think it's something else?
I think so. I think it's a little bit of the reality. When I look at another study we had looked at, it was just true spending patterns in China. This is taking aggregate spending data for the 21 provinces around China. If you set December at 100, so the month of December, we're going to say as 100. The month of January, kind of their pre-Chinese New Year, they bumped up to about 123. So they were having a great January. The minute the lockdown went in, it went down to 37%. So nothing was open. So you saw off of the 100 way down. First month back open, they bounced back up to about 76% of the 100. And then this past month, up to 84. So they're still down 16% off of what was I consider the normal December, but it's not, down 50%. And the things that they've seen bounce back are, some retail, it's still down in apparel retail quite a bit. Things like grocery stores that had a huge spike, I've not seen that continue. They're kind of flattened out and back to normal. So the rush on the grocery store has not continued. Kind of makes sense. Drug stores have continued to be up about 30%. And then while apparel was down 90%, it's now down in the 35 to 40%. It's just interesting to see what categories are coming back. And again, that's aggregate spending data through the banking system of all of China. So it's, very gross numbers and then broken down in where is it being spent. But I think it's a good sign that, things are bouncing back at 84%, 2 months out. It's not down 40%. So to me, that's kind of encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting to have such a wide breadth of statistics to dig into.
I got a lot of them.
Yeah. Good. We have 45 more minutes. So Esther, kind of shifting gears a little bit, your company has redefined coffee table books for sure and made luxury books a thing. In your mind, what is a luxury book? And then during this time, what books are doing well? I mean, we talked about travel books before. Can you talk a bit about that too?
Sure. So again, we, Assouline, as a luxury illustrated publisher, we have transformed what is in the minds as a coffee table book and really made that an object of identity and DNA for our community. So you are what's on your coffee table, you are, what's hanging on your wall, and our community appreciate collecting books that reflect their interests. So our entire list has catered to this community that we have, and whether it's wine or fashion or jewelry, we try to understand their desires and their aspirations and create books that are going to inspire them. And what we're seeing, interestingly, at this time when we've pivoted, everyone's had to pivot their direction, their marketing campaigns. In the beginning of COVID, we, of course, our e-com is where, is what's saving us, and communication with our audience on e-com. And we tried newsletters initially related to food. We figured our food books would sell, but it has been the travel series that we have created on Iconic Destination that has been the winner. Hands down, this series, we see our community gravitating towards destinations they dream of. And as we saw that developing, we launched a campaign called Travel at Home. And we have taken, I hope some of you have seen them. We've been taking a lot of ads on social media and throughout different channels promoting this destination series that are devoted to places that people have been but dream of going. And we are very hopeful that the sales will continue, and they've again gone through the roof on our e-com channels, so much so that we released a book, one in the series last week, and we've had a complete sellout in maybe the course of just the initial release, which is during this period of time phenomenal. And it does show us that travel is very close to the heart of our community and something that they're really missing, and it's a comfort to them. So the book is obviously a form of comfort. People are buying things that they love and enjoy and that bring them joy, and travel is at the top of that list.
Yeah, and you have titled.
I got out my St. Bart's book the other day because I can't go to St. Bart's at the moment, but I was trying to figure out how I recreate dancing on the table at Nikki Beach. So I just held the book up and danced around.
Go for it. Go for it.
Is that the purpose of the book, to teach people how to dance?
You never know what you're going to learn when you read. So if you can learn something else, that's great.
Kim Marie Evans is jumping in. Thank you, Kim. Then burn $100 bill and it's just the same. Love it. Well, I guess, that kind of leads into, I wanted to talk a little bit about luxury overall, because I think the word itself can be so overused and confusing. I remember checking into a not great hotel and the shower cap was labeled luxury. Or at M&S here in London, I can get luxury granola, right? So anything can be luxury. It's like Ellen was saying, it's like all natural. They become almost meaningless. So, what does a luxury product mean to you, and why do you think it will continue to thrive moving forward? Bob, I'll start with you again.
Yeah, what's a luxury product? I think, for us at Hermes, it's always about the quality and the craftsmanship. It's about something that's going to last you for a long time. And I think that's why people continue to be very loyal to us, is because, in an era where people aren't going to want a lot of things, they're going to want fewer things. They want the best that they can get of those things. If you're just going to buy one beautiful scarf or one beautiful tie or one beautiful blanket, you want to make it something that is great quality, great materials, great craftsmanship, and that you'll be able to have and keep for a long time, and even pass on to your children and even your grandchildren. But in terms of luxury, one of the things that we keep talking about at Hermes is that we think the new luxury is going to be all about space. All you hear today is about space. Everybody talks about 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. We think it's something that we've always looked at in our stores, is not making the stores feel overcrowded, not making people feel really confined into smaller spaces. But we think that that's what the customer is really going to be looking for, even more so going forward. And I think it applies to travel as well. When you hear about airplanes wanting to leave the middle seat empty, I think it's even beyond that. I think people are going to be wanting that space for that comfort level. And we're seeing more and more of that already. That's why we're doing this by appointment only a lot, is because it does limit the number of people coming into the stores currently. And we think it's really a trend that's going to be around for quite a while.
I love that. And if I could just follow up and ask you, I mean, you've been there after 9/11 and after 2008. I mean, how have you seen the luxury consumer change over the past few years? I mean, you were saying now they want fewer and better. I mean, before, did they want more, or kind of how has the transformation happened in your mind?
Yeah, I would say that in earlier years, people still wanted, they wanted, like, people would buy 6 handbags or 9 handbags. And over the past few years, they're not buying that quantity. They're buying fewer, but they're buying better. Like I said, they really want things that they feel are a real investment. This whole trend towards throwaway fashion has really diminished greatly. And even amongst the luxury customer, who at one point we were all reading about how, they're pairing a Chanel jacket with an H&M top. I think some of that has started to change as well, because I think people are also much more environmentally conscious today. And they don't want to live in a throwaway society. They want something that is going to be very, very long lasting. So to me, that's the main difference that we see now. And I think it's only going to be magnified living through this, the crisis that we're living through now.
Absolutely. What about you, Jack? You worked you've worked for, of course, luxury brands and then also a more mass market brand, although it was luxury to me in high school.
Yeah, I think the trends Bob is talking about, we're seeing really across the industry. And we've been seeing it for quite a few years now. The top end luxury has continued to grow. And I think this will actually help that part of the industry. People are going to want a smaller, more bespoke experience. I agree with Bob. People are going to want fewer, better. And that's been a trend that's been growing, and this is going to accelerate that. But we've also seen the opposite end of the fashion spectrum doing quite well in the more value and discount space. Look at TJX and Ross here in the US. They've had like 26 quarters of consecutive growth and profit until the last one. So you're seeing a very kind of bipolar, high end growing, low end growing, and the middle, like my old company of Gap Inc. and Banana Republic, really caught in the middle and not doing well. So those brands that are not differentiated, are overstored, too much inventory. As Bob said, people are worried about sustainability. They'd rather have 1 than 10 of something cheaper. It kind of pushes you to both ends of that spectrum. And we're seeing that across the globe. In the work I've done in Australia, China, Brazil, those trends are very much universal. And I think this is going to push that even more. And we're seeing it in the data of those, people I said, feeling more optimistic or less. The higher income people are much more optimistic than lower income people about how the economy is going to respond. The younger generation, much more optimistic than the older generation. So, I think we're going to see a lot of those demographics play out into these trends, but the trend of luxury growing and people wanting a more bespoke experience or fewer of better, I think was a trend that was happening, and this is going to accelerate it.
Thank you for that. I totally agree. And can everyone else hear right now? I've just got 2 messages that the audio was lost. Could you guys hear? Okay, all good now. Perfect. Thanks, John. Thank you, Jack. Esther, for you, it's a little different, right? How do you choose a luxury destination for a book, or what does it mean to you when you're looking at that content?
Sure. So, first, just to say in general with the luxury, what does luxury mean? And I think it's over performance, and that's really what our audience looks for. And I'm sure the same way, if you buy a Hermes bag, you feel if it overperformed, it did more than you expected it to do for you. And that's really what we're trying to do with all of our books by enhancing the finishes. You see the colors, foil stamping. We will have a book on wine that's in a wine crate. So we're really trying to go over and beyond, because we see that luxury customer where, they really want to be impressed, and you have to do something more for them. And then that purchase becomes a value purchase, and they're going to come back. So ironically, in addition to the travel collection, which is a best-selling series for us, our Ultimate collection, which is a series of books that retail at $895 and $995 and more, are bestsellers. And again, it's because our audience is looking for permanence, they're looking for detail and over performance. A book that they open and they're just amazed at the artisan level of stitching and the binding, to the tip-ons of the images, to the different papers that we're using. So we're paying a lot of attention to details in all of the books we create, with our consumer in mind. I'd say also it's about meaning. So they are looking for meaning, and this was alluded to by other panelists, where a destination might have meaning to them. So we are choosing, when you said, how do we choose the destinations? One, iconic destinations that have an identity, so that stand for something. When you buy a book about Ibiza and you put it on your coffee table, it says something about you. Versus if you've purchased a book on St. Moritz or on Palm Beach or on Tulum. So we are looking for locations that stand out and are very clear. And I think that this goes the same in across brands, where you need to define your brand. You need to really define your location and have it stand for something. And our audience, this is what's speaking to them right now.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, with those $800 and $900 books, what were the titles of those? Some of them?
That series is, a lot of them are based on what's called the Impossible Collection. So we work with an expert who chooses a dream collection. So the 100 most important American wines. So if they choose what would be your dream seller, that would be one collection. We've done it with watches, 100 most important watches, with art, with fashion, with design, with cigars. And we continue to expand that series that is, again, very specific, always led by an expert, but the finishes and the details of what we create are what speak to our consumer. We're coming out with whiskey this coming September, which we're anticipating incredible sales. We've had, a lot of pre-order on that title. And some of the series are also dedicated to photography or other themes.
Wow. So that kind of book, I need to keep that away from my 19-month-old, because she likes tearing the pages. It would be quite a disaster if that happened to that book. Thank you. Very, very interesting. I love it. I love books. They're not going anywhere. And neither is retail, I don't think. So I wanted to ask you, Jack, we had an interesting conversation about market penetration when it comes to online sales versus retail. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of conversation now about, it's been in the press during this, but certainly before, are stores going to go away? How important are stores for retail? Stores are very important for retail. Stores are not going away. A good brand might have in the US about 20% of their sales being done online, 25, most aren't above 30. So you're still doing 80, 70% of your sales in stores. Why these stores, while we're closed down, you can't make it up online. And yes, everybody has seen tremendous growth in their online sales if they've got a good e-commerce presence and had a strong business already. You've seen that grow, but when 70, 80, maybe more % is coming out of stores, you can't make that up. So stores are extremely important. In other countries, I do a lot of work in Australia, their penetration is very low, 5, 6%, almost across all categories. It's just not very penetrated. People don't shop online. Their delivery systems are not like the US. In the US, if you don't get it within a day, you're like, what do you mean it took so long? In Australia, if it's 2 weeks, they're like, well, of course, it takes 2 weeks to get something that I ordered online. So, online penetration is something we very much look at across the industry. I'm sure, Bob, you see it different across different regions in which you guys deal in, but still stores are very important. Now, the big question is, what are stores going to look like as we reopen? What are customers going to expect? Obviously, almost most brands in the world are probably overstored, especially those brands in the middle, not necessarily in luxury or in the discount space, but in the middle, too many stores. So yes, a lot of those needed to close before this. But then what does the protocol look like? How do you make people feel safe and comfortable shopping in your stores? And it's the same thing that restaurants are going to go through, hotels are going to go through, airlines are going to go through. So the consumer sentiment on that is pretty similar. And, shopping in a physical store matters. Here in the Bay Area, you can go do curbside pickup. I'm okay with that, but I kind of like to go into the store and see stuff. That's when I buy stuff I don't need. That's what retail is all about. I might have a Hermes bracelet on here that I might not have needed at the time, but I happened to be in the store and they had it. So, that's what retail is about. So just picking up and transacting is not the whole part of the game. The reason the luxury and all types of things work is because people do buy stuff that they fall in love with. It's sometimes easier to fall in love with when you actually physically see it. So, stores are going to remain being a big, big part of, the retail environment. They are going to change. They needed to change anyway. So, we're going to see that trend continue, but, everybody's going to have to figure out how to do stores.
Yeah. And I think too, like you were saying, physically being there, of course, when you travel, shopping is such a huge part of traveling too, finding a store or buying something, and you just always remember it, right? Especially if you're buying a very high ticket item, you always remember where you bought that and how that experience was.
Yeah, no, physicality of all this matters. I love all of my Asseline, travel books, but I do kind of want to be there at some point. Sounds like your whiskey book is great, but I might want to taste those at some point. So, like physicality of all of this actually matters. And when you travel, at least I travel for the things I can't do right now. Restaurants, bars, shopping, those kind of things are part of my curated travel experience. In fact, I was on with one of my advisors yesterday trying to figure out a place I want to go in mid-June. What I mostly wanted to know is, okay, if the hotel is open, are local restaurants open? Is the restaurant in the hotel going to be open? I don't just want to go sit in that hotel in my room. So I was more looking for his expertise of like, what is happening in Santa Barbara?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I just couldn't resist this, but like one of the thoughts of going back to Paris and the Lutetia, which opened not so long ago, reopened, but the Hermes store that's right near that hotel is such a part of that neighborhood experience. And when you go into that store, it's like being, it's a work of art. And obviously like just exploring it and being part of it just feels so good versus, just having to look at everything digitally right now.
Yes, absolutely. And Bob, how are you guys reimagining the store experience? Are you looking at it as temporary or forever or a year?
Yeah, for us, we have a very strong online business, but it's quite low compared to our total. And we've had a website. We launched our internet business back in 2002. We were one of the first luxury brands to actually do online business. And that business, needless to say, has really become exponential in the last several weeks. But for us, the store experience is really, it's really very, very important. Like Jack said, people want to touch, they want to feel, they want to smell. You want to smell the leather, you want to touch the silk, you want to feel, the cashmere, against your skin. So what we're seeing is more comfort in the stores, more comfortable areas. We're seeing more privacy. So offering more private experiences in terms of, rooms, whether they're not necessarily VIP rooms, but salons where people can sit, and we can show them the product. They have the privacy. I go back to the comment I made about space, which is very important. So we're creating space in the store that allows our clients to have the privacy that they really want to have. And then of course the service, which we strive to offer for everybody, making that also a very special experience for them as well.
I love that. And that, of course, those are things that will probably last a long time, right? More personalization, more space.
Yes, it's moving more and more towards that. As I said, we do a lot of business by appointment, but now this by appointment only, because we're forced by certain states not to allow. They're not open to the public. But it's interesting how the clients are responding so positively to this, because they love the idea that they can come in at a specific and designated time and work with their sales specialists and have 100% attention. The sale that occurs from a 100% attention on a private appointment can be anywhere from 3 to 6 times the rate of a normal sale. So it's something that they really, really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And they trust, and we've all been talking about trust, right? So they trust that person does this look good on me, or is this something that goes with something I already have, right? So that trust is so important as well. Speaking of fashion and Jack, we talked about some of the changes that might come after COVID-19 is under control. And you mentioned the end of the calendar. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. Bob just brought this up, made me think of, when people now are going to go to stores and have an appointment, some of the metrics we look at in retail is the amount of traffic coming into a store and then conversion. I think conversion is going to be very high. Like when you go into a store, you're going to be so excited to be there, you're not going to want to leave without something. So I think we're going to see average ticket go up and we're going to see conversion go up, although traffic will be down. So it'll be interesting how the equation ultimately comes out. Yeah, so, a lot of, discussion about, we've now shut down retail stores around the world for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. What happens to all that merchandise? Where do you restart? How does this whole thing start back up? And I've been part of it for 20 years, and we've seen the fashion calendar with fast fashion and high-end fashion kind of get out of whack with what consumers want and seasonality. Most high-end fashion brands, and then fast fashion follows it, starts delivering their spring merchandise into stores in November, December. It's pretty much marked down sometime by February or March. Like, it's really not spring in most of the Northern Hemisphere at that point. For you, those of you in New York, I don't remember the first spring day in January or February that I've experienced in New York. So this idea of maybe getting this fashion calendar back to reality, slowing it down a bit, and I think it will very much be led by the high-end fashion and the luxury brands, I think could be a huge benefit. The consumer has been asking for it, more of this buy now, wear now. People have kind of said they're doing it, trying to do it, but not really. But we've definitely seen some brands like Gucci and others come out and kind of say, we are saying they're going to stop this madness, get it back to a real calendar. And truly, if you took out about 8 to 12 weeks, it would start to get back to a little bit more reality of what the calendar probably needs to look like anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. The consumer's been asking for this for a long time. Everybody's talked about it, but all the companies I work around the globe have never really wanted to do it because you don't want to be the first one to do it, and you get kind of off sync with the whole calendar, which is fashion shows and editorial and wholesale. I think that is all up for grabs now because people have got to figure out, what do I do with this 8 to 12 weeks of merchandise that didn't sell? So back at my old company, it had been Banana Republic, you didn't sell your merchandise from March through April. That was spring/summer merchandise. It would mostly go on sale and to be cleared out at sometime in late June. It's still very wearable all the way through September. So should you really just open back up and put it on sale, or should you just keep selling it and then, delay some of the fall goods into what really is fall rather than delivering fall August 1? Maybe you should actually now deliver fall on October 1. So there's a lot of things in play on that. But again, if companies do the right thing and manage through this, like I did in 2009 when the bottom fell out of our business, we exited, 2010, the strongest year we ever had in sales and profitability, and had 5 great years after that. So I think if companies in the apparel space say, we're going to take this opportunity to do the things that the customer has been asking about anyway and get our business to be healthier and stronger than it's ever been, I think, a lot of brands will exit quite well from this.
Well, and I think travelers shop for all seasons, right? I remember in July, you can't find a swimsuit, right? But what if you're going on a beach vacation, right? Because they sold out in March. So I think that plays into it a lot too for the higher end travel, is traveling throughout seasons and hemispheres. So Bob, I wanted to ask you, Hermes has the Birkin bag and these incredible scarves, these forever status symbols. And in the same way, I think luxury travelers have their own status symbols, right? It's not the Eiffel Tower and Big Ben, but it's a trip to Antarctica or Bhutan or, making your own wine in Sicily. Can you talk about why those icons are important, but also you've launched recently a lipstick line, right? So you're kind of moving into other areas. Why did you do that looking at the luxury consumer?
Well, we went into beauty because we feel that beauty is it's a significant category for us. We dipped into it several years ago, but we weren't quite ready. And typical Hermes, it takes us a long time to do things, but we have to do it 1,000% correct with full control quality, full control craftsmanship. And so this project has been in the works for at least the last 4 years. It was supposed to launch even over a year ago, but again, waiting to make sure that everything was really absolutely correct. But we felt that beauty was a way to introduce Hermes to more people who want to be a part of the Hermes experience and offer them an entry price point, just like we have other entry price points in some of our silk products. So maybe if you're not going to come in and buy an Hermes scarf for $400, you can buy a small Twilly for $175. And we find that a lot of these entry price points are things that are very appealing to people who want to have a part of the Hermes experience, but are easing their way into it step by step. The icons are very important to us. They continue to be, and we think that they always will be. These are things that identify the brand without screaming, a big logo, but people identify the certain elements of the look of a Birkin, the lock on a Kelly, that they know that it's an Hermes product. And in the past couple of years, these iconic products have become even more and more significant to our total business because they are the most recognizable and the ones that people really are looking for.
I love that. And your lipstick line is also sustainable, right? Or you worked for sustainable?
Yes. There's there's zero plastic in any of the packaging, and there is zero plastic on all of the units that are in the stores. When you go into these massive cosmetic departments, you usually see huge tested units that are all made of plastic or other unsustainable materials. And we didn't do any of that. It's all sustainable. And I have to say it's been very, very popular. It's been a huge success. And we launched on March 4th. So just imagine that. Imagine what it could have been if we hadn't been in this situation, but it's okay. Better things to come.
For Zoom calls.
Right. Exactly.
Zoom friendly. And there was also a question about someone went on to see if Hermes is making masks. Is that?
No, we're not making masks. And I mean, it keeps coming up a lot. I mean, you see a lot of people making their own Hermes masks, but it's not something that we would do. We would never take advantage of a situation like this. Although there are a lot of creative types out there, and we've seen people have sent us some amazing photographs of what they're doing with their scarves and their prints.
More power to them.
Yes, absolutely.
And Esther, I wanted to, because you not only, of course, work with luxury brands, but you work with big brands like Coca-Cola and Netflix. Can you talk about that and what people want to see out of those kinds of books when you're working with brands like that?
Sure. So a part of our business is that we have partnerships with key benchmark brands across industries that are looking to invigorate loyalty with their audience or celebrating something, particular moment or collection or anniversary. And we work closely with them to develop a book that will tell a story, elevate, make something that might be temporary into something permanent in the book itself. And we're seeing that today with digital, everything becoming digital more and more, the brands want a reflection in print of what they're doing, because that resonates with their consumer. So for example, with Netflix, 2 years ago, we partnered and we created a book on Roma, because this is a film that is a work of art, and a book kind of echoes that message and added a lot of gravitas and is something that their audience can live with beyond the release. We did for The Irishman, we did for Marriage Story. So this is an example where a completely digital brand is looking to print. Coca-Cola, we've worked with across 3 different projects on anniversaries and celebrating the Contour bottle, and also deep diving into their relationships in music and film. So in that case, the brand wants to express their DNA and show that they're a lot more than just a product. There's a whole identity and culture and meaning, and print is a way to storytell that allows for that communication with a key audience.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, it's a lot of what we talk about in media too, right? Multi-platform, right? How content is content, but it's how are you distributing it, right? So that, I mean, I didn't realize that Netflix had done books, and it's so many of their TV shows or movies are so experiential, right? And so to bring that to a book is so interesting. Like The Crown, I would love a book on The Crown, right? Or Unorthodox, right? With Berlin photos. So thank you for that. I had a question come in about how there, of course, is these vastly deepening, income disparities in the world, and how important is it talking about the job and economic aspects of the business, I guess through marketing or internally. Jack, do you have any thoughts on that from the companies you've worked with? Like, because there's so many jobs supported by what we all do.
Yeah, I think, in retail and travel, hotels, restaurants, and all the things that we're talking about that are related to travel are the industries that are the most impacted. While our wealthy travelers are probably least impacted and will be able to travel, the people that work in these places are severely impacted. They've been shut down. A restaurant that you might want to go to, if it has to operate at 50% of capacity, it's hard enough for restaurants to make money. Having been on the Kimpton board, we had 74 hotels and 74 restaurants. And in total, they make money, but that's because a couple made a lot of money and quite a few didn't. So restaurants are hard to run. And especially when you shut down the bar business, right? So they're like, okay, you can open the restaurant, but you can open your bar. I'll tell you, most of the profit comes out of the bar side of a restaurant. So, I think the impact on employees, the local workers, the things that really fuel our travel industry, I think are huge. And I think we do need to talk about it. I think, the places that are doing things, I'm on the board of the San Francisco Opera. I'm the vice chair of our fine arts museums in San Francisco. These institutions, performers are severely impacted. And we're talking about it. We're trying to figure out how to help them. There might be fundraising parts of it. Are restaurants going to need to up their price? Maybe. Like, we want to have a great experience in that restaurant, but if they have to do it at 50% and they can't make money, we don't want them all to close. So I think being in any good communication, open, honest, transparent, telling what it is, offering, again, that great experience is going to make a big difference. And I think the brands that talk about it and really do it rather than acting like it's not happening, I think are going to resonate. It's that authenticity that people want. And again, if you look especially Gen Z, millennials, like, they want authenticity. They want things like Bob talked about, sustainability. I think this all comes together with, we need to talk about it like it is, and certain regions and places are going to be impacted. But, the things that fuel our travel industry are severely impacted, especially the people that work in it day to day, that clean our rooms, that serve our drinks, that serve our food. Like, those people can't telecommute. They're not working at all right now. What does that look like? And then when they open and they have to open at a small percentage, what does that look like? So, I think the industry and those brands that are able to talk about that and really, take it on and be open and honest about it, I think will win.
I agree. Does anyone else want to say anything on that, or can move on? Okay. Actually, I mean, kind of going along with that too, we talk about in travel how, if you discount your room rate by 10%, it takes 5 years to come back. So everyone's talking more about value add, right? And of course, when I've been looking at hotels, I mean, they haven't really been discounting prices, but they might be giving, 4 nights for 3. So I'd be curious, from all of your standpoints, or your viewpoints, what you think about discounting right now because of COVID and in the future.
Well, I would say that if you're discounting a product, if the luxury customer doesn't want that product to begin with, I don't think a discount is going to change that. I think it's really about the experience that you offer that customer in total, that's going to drive them to that that hotel or that restaurant or even that product. At Hermes, we don't discount, and on the opposite, I'm sure several of you have read that many luxury brands, because the business in China is back first and it seems to be booming, are raising prices in China. And Hermes is not raising prices in China. We were a little surprised and taken aback to read that. But it's something that we just think is really not the right thing to do, in a situation like this. So, but in terms of discounting, no. If a customer wants the product, they're going to pay what they think is a fair price for it, and we don't believe that you have to discount it to get people to purchase something that you really, really do want.
I'd say 100%, we agree, and we don't discount on our site, and we have tried to move away from Amazon sales as much as we can, because again, we find that our consumer, less is more, as we said earlier on in the conversation, and they value the book, they value its permanence, and we don't, even when we're selling a book that we created 10 years ago, which we do on the site every single day, the book is still at the full retail value. So we don't discount our backlist. The only thing we'll do is sometimes celebratory. So in honor of Earth Day or a moment that connects naturally with our brands, we'll have some special promotion, but it's really not something we see as a discount.
Before, as we kind of come to the end, I wanted to ask you if you could think about, and maybe I'll start with you, Esther, kind of for someone who markets luxury products or talks to luxury consumers, just some of the best advice over your careers that you would give to someone who's talking to these kinds of consumers.
So I would say first, you have to really know your consumer extremely, extremely well. And we do that very closely on our site by following, what their trends are in terms of their taste, what they're buying. When we come out with a new book on jewelry, we know we can go back to the jewelry clients, and we don't want to over inundate our customer with information that they don't need or doesn't speak to them. That's important with a luxury and a ultra high net worth individual. Things are coming at them from all angles, from all brands, and the last thing that you want to do is flood them, because it's a turn off, but you really want to know what makes them tick, what excites them, and when you do that, it's really like, fireworks, and they respond immediately. But then I would also say on the flip side of that is that the ultra high net worth luxury customer, you want to sometimes take them a little bit out of their comfort zone, because otherwise you're not providing them with enough of a service. They don't really, they don't need you if you're just going to keep showing them same. So we try to surprise our audience by every, year we'll come out with titles that aren't as expected that our brand would do, just to keep them, surprise them, and really have that kind of relationship where they, you never know what you'll find in one of our stores or one of our sites.
And thank you. And Joe, you talk about that, right? When you talk about taking people through a front door they know in order to take them out a side door that they don't know.
True.
Right?
And I think the other thing is, Esther's point, this is, I think, where Greg and I were when we launched Afar in 2009 was, we knew we were going to be speaking to a higher end audience, but, and Greg said this, he goes, if you just give, rich people the same old about the quality of the thread count of the sheets and the 5-star white glove service, like that's not that interesting. And so, they want to lead interesting lives too. And so, you gotta push people a little bit outside of their comfort zones and, in little incremental ways, and that does speak to this idea of walk them through something they feel comfortable with. But that's really the beauty of travel, right? You go into something thinking you know what's going to happen, and you put your head on the pillow that night reflecting on that day, and your mind is just like, oh my God, I can't believe all of these amazing things happened, and I met all these incredible people, and I had these great experiences that are okay with me. So it really speaks to being able to push people a little bit outside of their comfort zone, and that goes for travel advisors too. We've spoken to, we've had good conversations with our travel advisors about if we just keep giving people, the same, maybe they might not complain as much, but they're not going to get as much from that experience. And it's really incumbent upon us, to use travel as a force for good, to use it as a way to transform people's lives and the lives of those around us. And the only way that you're going to do that is if you, step out that front door a little bit differently than you did maybe the day before.
Absolutely. Bob, what about you? Kind of the 1-minute piece of advice you'd give to someone who's marketing to luxury consumers?
It's very simple. Be authentic. You have to be authentic in everything that you do. How you communicate, what what you're telling the customer they're going to be getting, whether you're talking about the material, whether you're talking about the experience, whether you're talking about the product. You can't fool people anymore. You can't fool anybody anymore. There's too much information out there. We're all blitzed with information constantly, on a minute-by-minute basis. And you certainly can't fool the luxury customer anymore. So it's for us, it's all about that authenticity that is really, really important. And as long as we adhere to that, that's what keeps our customers coming back again and again.
I love that. So true. Be yourself.
Yes.
Jack?
Yeah, I very much agree with Bob. I think it's about be true to your brand and make sure that you're consistent. And that is for, Bob's brand, certainly the travel brands, like what is Four Seasons, Rosewood, Amman going to do to be their true brand? I don't think you need to change at this point. You need to be authentic to who your brand is. I do think we're going to enter a phase because we're going to be in some sort of a recessionary environment, especially in travel with the people working in these places that are impacted. The things are going to be a little less ostentatious, a little less showy than they have been. Again, I think Bob's brand is set up perfectly for that. That's not what his brand is in any way. But we've been in a pretty over-the-top maximalism kind of fashion world and very showy. Look at the Instagram post from a year ago. That's going to die down. I think people are going to be more restrained, still wanting to do beautiful things and have bespoke, great experiences. They will step out their front door, but I think it's going to be less ostentatious. And I think the brands that can be that authentically of who they are and then reflect that with their customer, I think will really win. But I don't think showy and ostentatious is going to work in the next year or so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think of hotels who do, sleep in a golden egg for the night, or, I think that's probably over, and maybe shouldn't have been part of it in the first place. Anyway, so I guess we're coming to the end. So Ellen, if you want to close us out, and thank you guys so much. I could talk to you all for another hour.
Yes, as you know, I can. Right? Yeah. This has been so great because we've been talking for 11 weeks again about travel, and it is so refreshing to hear, Jack's stats on China and the optimism that relates to the US, because as we reopen, we will start shifting and seeing what the real behavior is. And I completely agree with Bob about how if you didn't want it in the first place, a discount is not going to get you to buy it or do it. And that's a conversation that I know a lot of our partners have been having in terms of, what do they think is going to get travelers out to start moving around the world? Is it going to be a discount? And I completely disagree. I think that if you don't tell the story, the backstory, that's why the brands that we have here, and Jack knows this as well, is that, if you're not creating the why, the books that Esther has been selling during this COVID virus is really interesting to me, because you can get that kind of revenue for a quality product and a brand that really can tell you the backstory of what that means. And we at Afar have been doing that for ourselves, for our audience, for our partners. We have a division that does that in case anyone doesn't know how to do commission, do the messaging themselves. But it's so important not to focus on just getting people out for the sake of it. It's really about why should they travel, because they're going to have more, as Joe mentioned, limited options, right? The resources are limited. We are, the pie is getting smaller. So why should all of these consumers do what each of us need them to do? And you better have a good story for that, because they're ready. They are so ready. Every piece of research we look at points to that. So I thank you all. I'm very, very grateful. This is, some of my dear friends that I have traveled with and spent a lot of time with, and I miss you guys so much personally. So this is a great way to see you at least. And next week at the same time, Thursday at noon, we're going to focus more on things that Annie experienced last week, which is a city that reopened. And as each of our places are reopening that we live in or want to travel to, it'll be an ongoing discussion of how that's happening and what is the future of where we can go and how we can move around. So I'm excited about that next week. And I thank you all again for sharing such great insights.